So we're going to talk about our baby in the East River first, and then we'll go on topic after that. Shay?
Yep. Good afternoon, everyone. With me today on my left is Chief Mike Baldessano of Manhattan Detectives, the commanding officer of Manhattan Detectives. I have Pat Jean Joseph, the commanding officer of the 5th Precinct Detective Squad, Lieutenant. And I have Lieutenant Mike Saccone of Manhattan South Homicide Squad, all instrumental in this first case. Sunday afternoon at approximately 4:05 p.m., a 7-month-old baby was pulled from the waters of the East River in the vicinity of the Manhattan side of the Brooklyn Bridge. In the last 24 hours, we have had some significant developments in the case that I'll bring you up to date where we are now and what the current status of the investigation is as we stand here today. And again, this is ongoing and preliminary. The case is still active. There will not be a good ending to this story. Our thoughts and prayers go out to the mother of this child during this difficult time. This is clearly something that no parent should have to live through. Again, I introduced who's with us today, who's here. What I did not say is our partners that are not with us today. And some of them have been instrumental, particularly in the last 24 hours. Several that I'd like to highlight. Our Intelligence Bureau. The work of the Manhattan DA's District Attorney's Office, Cy Vance's shop, has been instrumental as they have been working with us literally side by side since Sunday afternoon when this job came over. And our federal partners, in particular, Homeland Security. Brief timeline of some significance, and then I'll take some questions. Saturday, August 4th at approximately 12:30 in the afternoon, there was an exchange of the 7-month-old child between the father and the mother. Eventually, about 20 minutes later at 12:50 hours, where the father returned to his residence with the child was at that time alive, apparently healthy condition, and this is corroborated by video. That's at the father's residence, which is in the Bronx, in Co-op City. The child was picked up from the mother's residence. Sunday, August 5th at 13:30 hours, that's approximately roughly 24 hours later, we have the father leaving his residence in Co-op City with what appears to be a backpack that is somewhat rigged to be like a baby carrier, pulled to the front, so almost in a papoose type fitting, covered with a complete blanket. We believe at this time that the child was deceased in that 24-hour period, and now the father is taking the child out of the residence. Sunday, August 5th, at approximately 15:10 hours, that's 3:10 p.m. in the afternoon, we have the father walking in Lower Manhattan. We have in the area between the South Street Seaport and the downtown heliport, walking towards the East River. At that time, he is carrying that same backpack. Sunday, August 5th, at 4:05 p.m. is approximate time when we had the first 911 call regarding baby in the water. Monday, 2:19 p.m., August 6th, we have the father boarding a flight from JFK to Bangkok, Thailand as the eventual destination. That's a brief Saturday through Monday. I think the last time we spoke, we did not have an identity of the child. We learned of the identity of the child when the mother called 911 to report at about 9 p.m., roughly 9 p.m. on Monday evening, to report a type of custodial dispute. And by that, I mean I had dropped the child off to the husband and he had not returned the child. The father in this case is now identified as James Curry. He is a male black, 37 years of age, a resident of Co-op City in the Bronx. We anticipate his arrival back in New York within the next week to face a charge of concealment of a human corpse. That is a New York State penal law charge, and it is a Class E felony punishable exceeding 1 year in prison. Again, we anticipate his arrival back in New York within a week. We are working closely with the Manhattan District Attorney's Office on this case. This is an active investigation still at this point in time. At this point in time, we do not have a definitive cause of death, and that is a combination of the 5th Precinct Squad with the Manhattan South Homicide Squad and the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner, additional testing necessary. So there is a possibility that those charges as we go forward could be upgraded. But right now, we have an arrest warrant in hand for the charge of concealment of a human corpse. I'll take questions.
So is he in custody then in Thailand? Is he being held there? You're saying you anticipate his arrival back soon?
I anticipate his arrival back within a week. That will happen. And when he gets back to New York, he will face the arrest warrant that exists.
So he's in custody over there?
He's not going anywhere.
What was the name of the child and what was the nature of the dispute between the parents? Were they married? Were they separated?
Yes. So in terms of the name of the child, Rocco, I do not have that. Not Rocco, I'm sorry. I'm looking at Rocco and talking to you. Tony, I don't have the name in front of me. I tell you, it's not that I will not release the name, and we will get the name out. This is a heartbreaking case. It really is. But 7-month-old child where the mother essentially calls 911 and says the child did not show up for daycare. There is a what we believe is a court-stipulated agreement for visitation, but there was no, to my knowledge, red flags. Again, this is preliminary. This is all breaking where we learned of the identity of the child in the last 24, 48 hours. So preliminary information right now in terms of the relationship, any problems, but to my knowledge, standing here today, we don't have any red flags that existed before this.
Separation, divorce, what was the...
I don't know, and I'll turn it over to Mike. Do we have information on legally married? I do not believe they were legally married. They were not. Child in common.
Can you give us an idea, of course, without jeopardizing the investigation, of what was found in Co-op City to lead you to believe that the baby was not alive when the father left town?
Yep. So I will be intentionally vague. You know, this is a case that is going to be prosecuted, and it's going still quite active. A search warrant was executed on the residents in the Bronx. I will not get into what was recovered, but what I will say, it's a totality of the entire circumstances of this timeline, and there's a number of points of that timeline that I did not read off today. When you look at the totality of, he had sole custody at that point in time. He walked into that residence where he lives alone. We have on video that the child was fine walking into that location. When he came out of that location, we believe at that point in time that that child was concealed on his person. And then when you go forward with some of the other information, until the child winds up found in the water, and we have many points along the route that could add to that story.
Do you have video of him along the route?
I'm not going to comment further beyond that.
I'm sorry, you said the couple was not married?
Correct. Not legally married.
Do you have any idea why he went to Thailand and how he became
So what I will say here today is that there, during the course of the investigation, it's a combination of the work of our detectives, the work of the mother, information that she provided. It was made known to us, the Thailand link, and I think it's self-evident why I think the individual is trying to get away as fast as possible.
Is his name Curry, and does he have a Curry back?
The father's name is James Curry.
Curry, I didn't quite hear.
Yeah, that's James, common spelling. Curry, C is in Charlie, U is in Union, R is in Robert, R is in Robert, I is in Ida, E is in Eddie. James Curry.
Does he have a criminal background?
No comment.
Chief, is the mother aware of the child found in the river by the time she called 911 to report?
I'll tell you that I listened. I know Mike listened to it. I don't think anyone could listen to the call without their blood curdling. The mother calls, has a rather lengthy conversation with our 911 operator. And it starts out as a call to report the child was not dropped off at daycare or some school-type facility that day. At some point during the call, and there was no mention of harm to the child, at some point the mother brings up on her own that she heard on the news about a child in the water and she fears the worst and starts crying.
Is he being held in Thailand just for the mechanics by the Thai National Police?
Yeah, Tony, I'm not going to get into that piece of it. He landed. He was never admitted into the country. And he will be returned here, and I anticipate his return within the week.
Just to clarify again, so they live separately, the mother and the father, and the baby was at his house in Co-op City. She lives elsewhere.
They're both residents of the Bronx. They are not together, different residences. There was we're told, I have not read it personally yet, so this is still fairly fresh, but from the mother that there is a custody type document. There is also an agreement between the two individuals. So an exchange took place at her residence, where he then took the child by himself back to his residence. That is corroborated by video, and the child is healthy on video walking into that location.
Chief, I know you said that there was no documented history of problems. I assume that these DIRs, ACS, but did the mother indicate to the detectives tensions between her and dad, custody of the child, or just how tensions between them that would lead to this?
You're not far off, Rocco. Documented, you're right. We don't have documented cases in terms of prior to this week, and really by this week I mean this incident. There is a DIR that was filed post Sunday. Regarding ACS, we do not have information between these three individuals: the baby, this mother, this father, and ACS. That's not to say they don't exist in regarding other children. I'm not confirming or denying that.
Chief, you said that the father had the baby in a backpack.
Yep.
On video covered. Was that backpack, do you believe, found with the baby in the East River?
What I will say is that there is a video of the child in the water in close proximity to it. There is a backpack. That backpack was recovered, and going forward, we'll seek to determine whether that's one and the same backpack.
The mother's frantic call was Monday night?
Today is Wednesday. Yes, Monday evening at approximately 9 p.m.
Are there other children between the two?
Not to our knowledge, no. Yes, sir.
Did you say that the child was 7 months old?
Correct. January of this year, the child was born.
Did you say that the child was seen walking into the apartment?
No, he was seen walking and he was carrying the child.
All right, one or two more on the baby, and then we'll move to.
I'll do two more.
The father, anything particular about his occupation? He had any, what's known?
It's our understanding that he was an employee of the MTA as a cleaner, but that's got to be vetted out. Last question.
So you're saying the mom's call came in Monday night at 9 p.m. Daycare, or there seems to be a time gap in when she should have had her baby. Daycare wouldn't be told. Why was there a time?
So let me. I'll just go through you briefly again. The exchange was on Saturday afternoon, about 12:30. The job on Sunday was about, let me see, 1:30 in the afternoon. The father leaves the residence on Sunday. 3:10 we have him on video walking. Sunday at 4:05 p.m. is the 911 call. When you talk in the totality of what we know, there were attempts between the mother and the father, attempts to communicate, text messages, etc. When that was not satisfactory to her, that eventually led to a 911 call being placed. So there were attempts by the mother, once she learned the child did not show up at the daycare throughout the day, throughout that time period, to get in touch with, and she believed something was wrong, which eventually led to a 911 call. All right, I'm going to wrap up this. Couple cases here. Unfortunately, that's not the only case in New York City, so I'll start on my right, where we're asking, please, for publicity. As always, we do these cases, we get publicity, and we, in short time, get the perpetrator apprehended. So on my right, we have a case here, an arson case. This case is up to now 16 occurrences. Essentially what it is this individual on the right that we need to identify is setting rubbish fires in garbage cans. The locations where this is occurring, really I would roughly highlight it as anywhere from Union Square up to Times Square. Union Square, 34th Street, Times Square. The most dangerous part of this case is that it's taking effect quite often in restaurants or fast food restaurants, so the garbage cans in them. 16 occurrences where rubbish fires are set. We'd like to get this person apprehended as quickly as possible before anyone gets injured. So we ask for the public's help on this case. On my left, the first case, bank robbery. We have a 5-case recent bank robbery case. This also is in Manhattan, south of 59th Street. Multiple different banks targeted. Individual here, his appearance has changed slightly. It looks like he has shaved recently. This is the most recent picture that we have. And this is an individual that is going in, passing a note, no weapon displayed, but intimating that there would be a problem if the note is not complied with. And again, 5 hits, bank robberies. And last but not least, the most worrisome of all, this is an assault 2 case, a slashing case that occurs in close proximity to Brookdale Hospital in Brooklyn. This is an individual here. He was seen in close proximity to the hospital. In a short time period, he assaulted 2 separate women, one of them being a nurse. The 2 assaults took place same block, roughly 10 minutes apart. In the first case, he walked up and unprovoked slashed a woman across the face. In the second case, he assaulted via a punch, no weapon. Three cases highlight. We will have them up on our Twitter feed. We will get it out through DCPI, but again, we ask for the public's cooperation. If you recognize these people, please call Crime Stoppers.
We'll be sending an electronic version out there. Off topic?
I almost snuck out of here. Rocco.
Chief, the Daniel Drayton case.
Which case?
The Daniel Drayton case. Have any of his claims been either verified or knocked down? Claims about other murders in the other city?
Yep. Absolutely nothing has changed, Rocco, since the last time I got that question. Still being vetted out. Nothing that we can corroborate at this point in time. Nothing has changed regarding his custody status. Again, 2 cases. One we talked about today, very different from that one. In that one, he is facing significant charges in California, so that will have to be balanced out between multiple prosecutors when he in fact gets back here. In terms of the charges and what he's going to be facing, we have the rape in Brooklyn and we have the homicide charge in the 105th Precinct in Queens. And all of, there's been much written about Mr. Drayton. All of that has to be corroborated. We have not yet corroborated any of the claims.
I believe it's the 17th precinct, because we're going to accused of getting his phone numbers and sending explicit photos
Yep.
of himself to female tenants. Is this case still active, or what's the status?
Yeah, well, first of all, let me speak to the case in general. I mean, extremely troubling, the disgusting nature of what took place there. So that in and of itself is troubling. In terms of the criminal prosecution, though, and the complaints that were made, not active at this time. What we have is we are following the law, and what we have is that line between harassment complaints and aggravated harassment complaints, and the balance of the investigation when we can make an arrest. So in these cases, We are not at aggravated harassment, as disgusting and as that act is. And so that's where we're at. So they're not active cases, but we encourage anyone else to come forward to make complaints, and we'll vet each case out individually on its merits. Anyone else?
I'm just wondering if the police department has to say anything about the city's decision not to appeal the judge's decision in the Vermont Graham case to release those property.
Yeah, I would push that to Legal Matters, which I really think that Legal Matters would probably be pushing that to the City Law Department for a comment. In the back?
Is there any information that you could share about the people who struck our lady yesterday?
We can get back to you on that. I don't have any upgrade on the condition. That's the cases in Queens. All right, thank you very much.